Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Child Outcome Summary Process Overview and Resources for Technical Assistance and Professional Development. My name is Tammy Phillips. I am an Early Childhood Special Education Lead Specialist at the Arizona Department of Education. We've been having professional development opportunities out in the field, but due to many scheduling conflicts and different things that pop up for educators, sometimes it's hard for everyone to get together at one time. So we decided to record this session. So it's just going to be a brief overview. If you have questions, you can contact me after you've had a chance to watch this and ask any questions you have, or set up a time where we can meet and talk a little bit more about the child outcome summary processes and the changes that have come into place this year. All right, so let's get started. Our objectives for this session is that participants will have an opportunity to review the changes to reporting child outcomes summary data and the training and resources available to learn the process more in depth, and the reporting requirements that we now have in Arizona, and definitions of our progress categories used to report children's progress. So what is reported to the Office of Special Education Programs is outcomes in 3 different areas. So the first area is the social emotional skills. That includes interacting with peers, expressing emotions, responding to others' emotions, following social norms, participating in social games, and social communication. The second outcome area is acquisition of new knowledge and skills. And so this is demonstrated by showing interest in learning, using problem solving, engaging in purposeful play, those pre-academic and literacy skills, understanding directions and questions, and the language that children use to communicate. The third area is outcome 3, use of actions to meet needs. So this includes children moving around to meet their own needs, from one area to the classroom to another, or at home from one place to another, eating and drinking with increased independence, dressing, toileting, washing. The communication piece of this area is communicating their wants and needs, and understanding safety and awareness of themselves and others in their environment. So for the past more than 10 years, I believe it's around 13 years or so, Arizona has been using the Teaching Strategies Gold tool, also known as TSG. The TSG tool assessed objectives and dimensions and group the results into the 3 outcome areas for us. So what you see pictured here are the 3 outcome areas broken out with 3 rectangles, that within there you'll see the objectives and dimensions that you are probably very familiar with. So when you assess these objectives and dimensions in my Teaching Strategies Gold, when you level and finalize, the tool is able to pull these various objectives and dimensions that go into each outcome area and give us a score that we need to report, which is a 1 to 7 score. 1 being foundational skills, and all the way up to 6s and 7s, which are age expected skills. And we're going to go over more about what each of those 1 to 7 numbers represent in just a minute. But just to give you some background and get you thinking about the new way that we're going to be talking about the child outcomes, this helps understand how this was happening in the background before using my Teaching Strategies Gold. All of the information that was reported was pulled from the tool and then reported to the Office of Special Education Programs. And now we have moved to having a variety of options for tools and methods that you can use to get these outcomes. Programs do not have to use My Teaching Strategies Gold. However, they can opt to use My Teaching Strategies Gold continually. However, administrators will need to run reports to give them the 1 to 7 reporting numbers for students. So let's go into the 1 to 7 scale so you understand what it all means. So the Child Outcomes Summary Rating Scale, otherwise known as COAS, that's probably the new terminology that we're all going to be adopting, COAS. The COAS rating scale was designed to reduce the rich information that we have about children. So all of the knowledge and skills that we went over that go into each of the outcome areas, it's just reduced down into a common metric from the 1 to 7 so that we have a summary of the children's progress at local, state, and national levels. So the COAS summarizes information on the child's functioning in each of the 3 child outcome areas using this 7-point scale. So a 1 represents that a child does not yet show functioning expected of a child his or her age in any situation. A rating of 2 describes a child that occasionally uses immediate foundational skills across settings and situations. A level 3, the child demonstrates or uses immediate foundational skills most or all of the time across settings and situations. If a child was scored with 4, and this is demonstrating that the child shows occasional age-appropriate functioning across settings and situations. With a rating of 5, children are showing functioning expected for his or her age some of the time and or in some settings and situations. Then when we cross this dotted line that you see on the slide here, we're moving into age expected. So 6 would indicate that the child's functioning generally is considered appropriate for his or her age, but there are still some significant concerns about the child's functioning. And a 7 is showing that the child is functioning at age expected for his or her all skills and all of the various skills that were in each of those outcome areas in almost all everyday situations. So there may just still be, if they're still eligible for special education, there still might be some concern, but for the most part, according to that developmental area, they are showing a functioning that's expected for their age. So what happens with reporting is that when children enter our program, or the Early Childhood Special Education program, we would give them an entry score of a 1 to 7. And then when they exit special education because they've met all of their goals and they no longer need an IEP, or they exit early childhood special education and go on to kindergarten with or without an IEP, we give them again another 1 to 7 exit score. And then from there, we can take a look at how much progress they made. And to explain that, the progress categories and how those are reported, there's a really nice video that I'm going to show you that really explains this much better than I can.
COAS data to OSEP progress categories, summary statements. In this presentation, you will learn how the Child Outcome Summary data are transformed into the national data reported by the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Special Education Programs, OSEP. Children exiting from early intervention or early childhood special education should have 3 pieces of child outcome summary information for each of the 3 outcomes. a rating between 1 and 7 at entry, a rating between 1 and 7 at exit, and also at exit, a yes or no answer to the question about whether the child has gained any new skills or behaviors. The state agency collects this information from all programs around the state. To demonstrate how this information is converted into the numbers that are sent to the U.S. Office of Special Education Programs, let's start with the progress reporting categories. There are 5 progress reporting categories, each representing progress between entry and exit. When reporting progress data, states identify the percentage of children who A. did not improve functioning, B. improved functioning but not sufficient to move near to functioning comparable to same-age peers, C. improved functioning to a level near to same-age peers but did not reach it, D. improved functioning to reach a level comparable to same-age peers, and E. those who maintained functioning at a level comparable to same-age peers. The progress reporting categories can also be thought of as different developmental trajectories. Understanding that children show different progress trajectories is key to understanding the OSEP reporting categories and how the child outcome summary data is converted into those categories. In this graph, age in months is shown across the bottom. 5 different trajectories of growth in an outcome are illustrated with different colored lines. Look at the red line in the graph. This illustrates the first reporting category, A, which refers to children who did not show any improvement in functioning between entry and exit. Note that the red line is flat between 12 and 66 months. All other lines go up, indicating that these children acquired new skills over time. The purple line illustrates typical development and is Category E, children who continue to function like same-age peers between entry and exit. The green line shows Category D, children who were not functioning like same-age peers in the outcome when they entered the program, but caught up and were functioning like same-age peers by the time they left the program. Both the blue and orange lines illustrate the growth of children who were not functioning like same-age peers when they entered the program. The orange line shows children who begin to acquire skills at a faster rate after entering the program at around 24 months. The blue line represents children who continue to acquire new skills at the same rate after they enter the program. Now, let's talk about how the 7 points on the Child Outcome Summary Rating Scale become the A to E reporting categories. The 7 points also represent development trajectories as shown in this graph. The 6 or 7 on the Child Outcome Summary Rating Scale indicates the child is functioning like same-age peers. Expressed another way, a child with a rating of 6 or 7 is considered to be following the trajectory for typical development in the outcome. In the graph, the dotted line indicates typical development. Ratings above the dotted lines indicate children are developing like same-age peers. Ratings below indicate slower development. Let's say a child at entry was given a rating of 2, and at exit was given a rating of 4. When we draw a line to connect those 2 ratings, we see the child's developmental trajectory for the time he spent in the program. Let's look at some different trajectories. Again, a rating of 6 or 7 on the Child Outcome Summary Scale indicates the child is functioning like same-age peers. Let's look at a few different combinations of ratings for children who are functioning like same-age peers at both entry and exit. All these children are counted in Category E. This child entered the program not functioning like same-age peers, but caught up by the time she exited. This pattern is Category D. This is the pattern we looked at earlier. This child showed sufficient improvement in functioning to move to a higher developmental trajectory, which is a higher rating on the scale, but had not yet achieved age-appropriate functioning when he exited. Here's another example of Category C. This child showed improved functioning but did not change developmental trajectories. Note the slope of the child's line. It is not flat, which means the child showed improved functioning. This growth pattern is an example of Category B. Here's another example of Category B. And another example of Category B. In each of these examples, the child showed growth but had not moved closer to functioning like same-age peers by the time of exit. We know that a small percentage of children show very little or even no growth while on the program. For these children, we need to look at the answer to the progress question about whether the child acquired any new skills between entry and exit. If the child has a rating of 1 at entry and exit, and the answer to the progress question is yes, then the child's trajectory is going up ever so slightly. This would be another example of Category B, because the child made progress even though she did not change trajectories. If the answer to the progress question had been no, then the child's progress would be in the Category A. This means the child's developmental trajectory was flat or went down. This is an example of a child who lost skills in the outcome area between entry and exit. Here's another example of Category A. Sometimes providers mistakenly answer no to the progress questions for a child who has the same rating in entry and exit. The progress question refers to the acquisition of any new skills. Children who maintain a rating of 2 or higher over time are acquiring new skills to be able to keep the same rating because what is expected of older children developmentally is more than what is expected of younger children. To review, by comparing the entry and exit ratings, we can determine the kind of progress children make during their time in the program. The comparison of entry and exit ratings and the answers to the progress question provide the information for all children's child outcome summary data to be converted into one of the 5 reporting categories. There is one more thing to be aware of to understand how the national data on child outcomes are calculated. The national data are reported in 2 summary statements, which are derived from the numbers in each of the A to E reporting categories. The first summary statement is, of those children who entered or exited the program below age expectations in each outcome, the percent who substantially increased their rate of growth by the time they turned 3 years of age, or for preschool by the time they turned 6, or exited the program. The shorthand for this summary statement is, children who showed greater than expected growth. You can see from the formula that Summary Statement 1 is calculated by adding the children in categories C and D and dividing that number by the sum of the number of children in categories A, B, C, and D. In this example, 75% of children who entered the program below age expectations in social relationships increased their rate of growth by the time they exited the program. Summary Statement 2 is, the percent of children who were functioning within age expectations in each outcome by the time they turned 3, or 6 for preschoolers, years of age, or exited the program. Summary Statement 2 is calculated by adding the number of children in categories D and E and dividing that number by the total number of children across all categories. This summary statement is often described as children who exited the program within age expectations. For the same example, 54% of children who exited the program were functioning within age expectations in social relationships. Now, when you see the National Child Outcomes data in a table like this, you will know how the Child Outcomes Summary 7-point scale ratings become those data reported about early intervention and early childhood special education.
right, so we're going to talk about what this means for practitioners or teachers in the classroom. Um, the progress categories are calculated for us as we report our entry and exit scores. So we don't need to worry other than answering the yes or no to the progress question, which A to E that children fall in. That's automatically calculated just by giving the entry and the exit scores. So what does this mean for teachers? So you have been using a transdisciplinary approach to collecting data for children's entry and progress and child outcomes exit scores for quite some time. Just been happening in the background. So as we are looking to allowing programs to have an option of doing the COAST process as a methodology or a team-based approach, or using a combination of other tools to get entry and exit scores, we are expecting, or the COAST process expects, that parents and caregivers, Head Start teachers, community preschool teachers, early childhood special education specialists, related service providers, evaluators, anyone working with the child or knows the child, to provide input into the child outcome scores. So data collection tools and methodologies that you can use. So you can use information from your screening and evaluations, from observations, from narrative records, checklists, rating scales, ongoing progress monitoring tools like TS Gold. You could use child's present level of academic achievement and functional performance if we're looking towards an interim score or the exit score. So basically everything that you have been doing, you just pool all of that together to do the COAST process if that's the way that your program decides to go. And if not, if programs are just staying with My Teaching Strategies Gold, you continue to collect documentation and evidence utilizing that tool, and it will generate your 1 to 7 scores for you. So some additional tools that we have available that help programs in acquiring the 1 to 7 ratings for students if they are using the COAST process. One is the age anchoring tool. So the age anchoring tool was developed utilizing typical child development and breaking out the knowledge and skills that we're looking for in each of the outcome areas. So an easy way to kind of take a look at where kids are functioning is to look at their present levels or their MET or any of the documentation that you have, information from parents and whatnot, and highlight it on the age anchoring tool, so you can see if their skills that they have in that area are foundational, immediate, foundational, or age expected. So that foundational will be skills that are quite a bit a ways from their chronological age. That immediate foundational skills are those skills that are preceding what we would expect for a child of that age. Another great tool that we have available, and I'll show you where to find these, is a decision tree for this summary rating discussions you could have if you were doing the COAST process as a team. So you follow this really nice flow chart, and it helps you go one way or the other, and then just get really down deep into exactly where the child is from that 1 to 7 rating. So questions to ask when you're planning for monitoring of children's progress. So you would use that age anchoring tool and the decision tree to get an entry score. And then what do you do from there? You will still need to collect evidence of children's learning and development and document that and save that so that you know at any given time where a child is developmentally. So as a team, you need to decide, how will evidence of children's learning and development be collected and documented? How will evidence be looked at for quality. Like, what does that evidence look like? So high quality photos that show what children are doing at a particular time, or anecdotal records that you have available for your children to make those decisions on the decision tree. So you need to decide how your evidence will be collected. How often are you going to be collecting that documentation? And what does that high quality evidence look like? All right, so then after you've got an entry score for your students, then is the time to think about their path for success. So how are children going to learn and grow and increase that trajectory throughout their program? So one way of visualizing success for children is using the MEPI model. Dinabel and McInerney discuss this in depth in the itinerant service delivery model guide that they have written. The MEPI model is just a framework for figuring out how you help children grow and develop and increase their skills. So MEPI stands for maturation, environment, peer mediation, and intensive intervention. So it's a system for you to come together as a team and analyze and prioritize goals and objectives for children. So when we're thinking about maturation, that is the biological influence and practice that happens naturally for children. So teams can understand that children mature during the 8 to 10 month period of the school year, and their needs and approaches might evolve as they grow physically, cognitively, emotionally, and socially. So development of knowledge and skills in some areas are likely to improve solely as a result of maturation and experience without a lot of significant teacher or peer involvement. Then there are specific skill sets or knowledge that we're looking for children to acquire, and that can be addressed oftentimes through the environment. So the team understands that the effect of learning of the learning environment is not only limited to learning materials and the daily structure, including those routines and transitions, but also includes the social aspects of external and internal expectations, opportunities to be in a consistent and stable learning environment that has been intentionally created and arranged to maximize the child's engagement and active participation. So there are some skills that need practice and need opportunities for practice. So we can set up that environment to address various skill sets. Another consideration is peer mediation. So peer mediation promotes a social collaborative learning climate that is often overlooked and not taken into consideration when planning instructional approaches and strategies. Teams can expect that some skills will improve due to a child's consistent peer interactions. So collaborating on the structure of peer modeling opportunities and providing opportunities for small group social exchange is oftentimes a really good intervention for certain skill sets. And then the last piece of the MEPI model is that intensive direct intervention or instruction. So teams need to leave time to consider approaches to direct intervention that might be necessary, in particular for those IEP goals. All right, so after we've sat down and thought about the MEPI process and analyzed the child's skills and how we're going to address them, we need to make a path for the child so that they continue to grow. There are lots of technical assistance resources for collecting documentation available from our unit. I'm going to show you lots today when we do the website tour. We also have professional development for instructional practices. There's coaching, not just knowledge of child development is key to keep up on understanding where kids are typically develop at various stages. Environment and placement helps create a path for children to succeed. Eligibility practices, materials, resources, data that's reviewed regularly at the classroom level. All right, so to support schools in becoming familiar with child outcomes process and options, the Early Childhood Special Education team created 3 separate web pages of resources around child outcomes. So the first one is the overview of the process, which describes the purpose, the data elements that must be submitted, and the timeframes. The second link is designed to support programs that want to transition to different tools or methodologies for the COAST process. It lists potential alternative assessment tools and identifies the process districts can take when adopting new methods. And then the third page is about the data submitted and descriptions of the summary data points that are developed based on entry and exit scores. So we looked at that a little bit today, but I know it can be overwhelming. So having the website there consistently, you can go back and take it piece by piece to learn parts of it. We will go through each of these so you can see just briefly. I don't want to overwhelm you too much, but I want to show you where you can access all of these resources. So after you are done watching this, you can go play around and look for the various resources that we have for you. So from the Arizona Department of Education, on the main webpage, you can go to Early Childhood Special Education, and here you will find those 3 pages that I described. So the first I have pictured here, the Child Outcome Summary Process. So again, it goes through those 3 outcome areas that we went over. As I'm scrolling down, it goes over the purpose for assessing child outcomes and then the reporting requirements. So I did not mention some of the other interim points that you may have to submit data for as of yet. So what's reported to the federal government or to OSEP is for the entry to the exit, so we know how much progress is made. But to ensure that we're keeping track of our students and making sure that data is collected on all of our children, here in Arizona, we've added some other points to collect child outcomes data. So at the end of the year, so even if a child is not exiting, we'll be reporting end of the year. In the event that they were to move and not come back, then we have a data set that we can utilize to see how much progress they made while they were here. And then if they do transfer to another school district, so they disenroll in your program and go somewhere else, that would be another point in time. And then of course the exit. So when you go to this page, it explains each of those submissions and the timeframes. So that's that page. So I'm going to go back to our main page and then go to the second part. And this is the recommended steps for engaging in the child outcomes summary process. So there are a lot of links on this page. So you can read the overview, that'll take you back to where you were, learning the definitions of the COAST ratings, so what we just briefly talked about today. Then there also are online training modules for the COAST process that goes in a lot more in depth than this brief overview. So if you complete all 8 of these modules, you'll have a really good idea of what the COAST process is all about. Then in section 2 here, this is where you would find that age anchoring tool, the rating definitions, the decision tree. We also have a recording form. It's just a sample, it's not a requirement, but it's a method for programs to use if they want to do the COAST process and they need a place to keep the documentation or evidence that they used. And then after that are some published tools that have crosswalks between the tool and the COAS outcomes and the outcome areas. And then after that, there's a couple more sections. There's supporting parent participation in the COAS process, developing COAS process skills through team practice activities. And the fifth area is utilizing a self-assessment of the COAS process. So after you have completed the modules, you can take the child outcome summary knowledge check to make sure that you have acquired all the knowledge you need to do the COAS process. And that is an open book test, so you can go back to the materials that they provide. So make sure to have those handy if you're doing the knowledge check. And then let's go back one more time to our early childhood main page. The last page is child outcomes data, so performance of preschool age children with disabilities. So here again, it's going over the definitions of the child outcomes data points and the progress categories for you. And then the summary statements are the two in the video that they were talking about that are reported to OSA. And on this page, you can see the formulas that generate the percentage of children from a program that are in summary statement 1 or summary statement 2. And then there is another link to national and state data charts for each of the outcome areas. So that is just a brief overview of the changes and what's happening with the COAS process. Like I said in the beginning, I'm happy to meet with you later on if you have more questions. We're all just learning this as we go. So there's going to be a lot of learning and a lot of working together so that we ensure that everyone understands the process. So thank you for taking your time to watch this video, and I hope it was helpful.